It's a 1935 Old Town square stern. They made them for quite a few years, even prior to this. They came with flotation fat places on the side or without them. This one is without. I didn't like the looks of it. It originally had them. Canoe-built boat, Old Town, Maine. Goes very nicely. And the motor on it is an Evinrude N 1928. And this motor has been a particularly difficult motor to work on, since carburetors are pretty hard to find, and they have a reversing mechanism which is somewhat problematical. If you can see, the controls have 3 positions. You can see that's tilt up. That's how you tilt it up. And when it's down in the position, if you see it's dropped in a little bit, it's in forward. So when you go into reverse, it holds it, and the lower unit swings around like that and stays in position. The big thing comes when you shift it out of forward, from reverse into forward. You only go so far, and it still stays locked down, so it's able to swivel around and reposition itself. If you push down on the handle, the engine comes up out of the clamps while it's swiveling, and it tends to get jammed and you're going sideways. It has a conventional water pump right here, spring driven. Seems to provide plenty of cooling. And it's a twin horizontally opposed engine, somewhat anemic. It's only 2.5 horsepower, and I'm not totally impressed with its power, but it does run quite smoothly. My problems with it were the ignition system was done, and we replaced it with a Johnson twin from about the same era, and the coils fit right in, but they're a little bit smaller in diameter, and you have to take the wires and hook them up differently than they were originally. The original coil had contacts on the bottom, and this one I wired the wires up directly to the coil, and unfortunately it didn't run very good when I was done, and I fooled with it. I had 2 different carburetors on it, thought the carburetor was the problem, and I took it out for a test run, and it ran horribly, and so I brought it back. In the meantime, a friend of mine gave me a junk Neptune, which had the same series carburetor that this thing had originally, so I was able to go through that, which is pretty corroded, but it works very, very well with some cleaning, and the sonic cleaner it cleaned out. And it has a different choke arrangement on it, which I had a KD mercury carburetor on it. It kept backfiring, it would blow the choke shut. This one, you can progressively open the choke, so when it's cold, you can control the fuel without having to touch your inlet needle, which is down at the bottom. You can see it right here, and that works well, but it stays in one place, and you can operate the engine until it's warm with the choke, give it some extra fuel, sometimes all the way closed or just a little bit cracked open. The engine now runs extremely well, but it's not because of the carburetor, it's because I matched the coil with this proper condenser. I had left the original 0.1 condenser in it, which was made for the older coil, and I had the newer Johnson coil in there, which required a completely different condenser. And it was 0.3 microfarad rather than 1 microfarad, and when I changed it, it ran considerably better. It runs, as you will see later on, you can hear it running. It runs very, very well. The spark plugs in it, it requires a very hot plug. I've got a W18, which seems to start and run well. The W14 is too cold for this particular engine. I also lengthened the tiller arm because you can't run it sitting down in the seat, reaching behind you. It's very uncomfortable. And the reason they had such a short tiller arm, the original tiller arm came out to about here. The grip, the end of the grip is right there, along with the button rig to press the thing so you can go into reverse. But I could see why they didn't make it longer is because this hole right here would spread. It already has a little bit in this one. You can see it's starting to wiggle just a little bit, and this would give you way too much leverage and bend it even more. But knowing that, I can avoid doing that, but it does have, it's comfortable now to run it sitting in that seat, reaching back. It's not reaching back so far. I can't, I'm old and it's tough for me to reach. Other than that, the engine now runs quite well with that new condenser in it, and I'm pleased with its operation. The reversing mechanism is a catch assembly up in here that allows it to turn 180 degrees and allows this to rotate. So the cooling system has to go up inside and then come back out again up here. And apparently there's some difficulty with it getting loose and not pumping enough water. This one seems to be very, very adequate. But this catch mechanism does work. It's not what I call a real safe system. It's very abrupt unless you can idle the engine way, way down, which I am now able to do since I changed the condenser. So I am quite pleased with how it runs and operates, but it's not my favorite engine. I don't think it was really designed with people in mind. The average user would have difficulty with it. A further note on the ignition, this ignition now has a Johnson coil, as I said, and has the correct condenser for that Johnson coil, but this system was set up as a maker, not a breaker. It only closes the points for a very, very short duration. I'd say less than 5 degrees. And the build time on that Johnson coil wasn't designed for that. It was designed to build quite a bit longer number of degrees, and I think this engine would run better with a breaker system. And apparently in 1928, which this is, they did go to that. This is not the original ignition that's on it right now, and we're hoping to maybe get that in there and see if it doesn't run even better. On.